Watching around the world, thank you so much for joining me today. For those who don't know me, my name is Alejandra Corbat, and I'm very happy that you are here. I am in YouTube and LinkedIn, so I'm just checking that everything is working properly in both platforms. So I think everything is fine. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to let me know what you are watching from, so that would be great. I see we have some new names here, so thank you so much for joining. Today, I want to share with you a technique that I would like to apply to those PDF files that are very inconsistent. So this week I had a question in my other channel. I have a channel in Spanish, and I received a question on how to combine PDF files with many pages and tables, how to combine that consistently, let's say. So, and yesterday I received another question as well, and I needed to prepare a presentation, so I might as well just share with you as well. So before I start, let me show you Morales from Poland. Thank you so much for joining. Good morning here in Canada. I'm not sure what time is out there, but I'm very sure it's very different time than mine. So hello. And look, thank you so much for being here. Good morning. And so let me start. Tierno. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly. Hi, nice to see people from France as well. Poland, France. Look, can you remind me where you are watching from? I think it's from the States, but I'm not 100% sure. If you can remind me, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Excellent. Okay, let me move my screen and let me start sharing so you can see the files that we're going to work with today. The files are already shared on the description of this video in YouTube. So you want to use those files to practice what we're going to learn today. So you are very welcome to do that. And let me just present, share screen, and this screen. Excellent. Okay. So here I have a folder on my desktop. My folder is called Demo 2022 November 5th. And my subfolder is called PDF. So, thank you, Gilo, from Mauritius Island. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Excellent. So I have 4 different files, and I'm gonna just open them so you can see the content of this file and how inconsistent the tables on these files are. Let me move down below the screen so you can see that better, and let me remove this. Excellent. So this is, for example, file 3, and let's say this file has a column, an empty column, column 1. It has a column with the name. It can be any name of an item. It can be a brand. It can be something that works for you, right? So let's say in this case it's a name, right? The name, and I have several columns. The columns are A, H, B, L. Column 2 is empty. Column E, D, G, C is all over the place. This is file number 3, and this is only 1 page. File 2 is 2 pages, but the first page has just a certain amount of columns. The second page has more columns, right? And of course, the names of the columns are not always the same. And for example, this table doesn't have any empty columns. The table on the top has 2 empty columns. And of course, some of the names are similar, some of the names are different. The next file is file number 1. This has only 3 columns. It's only 1 page. And file number 4 has more columns, but it's only 1 page. So let me close these files. Later on, we will see more information with additional data with file 5 to 7. I'm going to open that as well so you can see the difference between this and the other files. File number 6 has several columns, 1 empty column in the middle, only 1 page. File 5 has column set, right? So it's totally different to other files. And this column has only $1,000, let's say, every single row. And file 7, this is a massive table in comparison with the other ones. It has so many columns, empty columns in the middle. It has this combination of set, y, etc. So this is a pain when you try to combine all this information together and make it dynamic. So every single file that comes to the folder is captured in that summary that you need to present this information, right? So this is the final product, let's say. All the single files that we have here had been cleaned, had been combined. And here I can see only, this is file 1, file 2, file 3, and file 4. File 4. You saw that the files are from 1 to 4 here on my PDF folder. If I copy the information from my additional information, Control-C, I go to my folder PDF, Control-V to paste. I go to my pivot table, I right-click, and I refresh. All the files are going to be transformed and added to my pivot table. Now I have from file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I have my grand total. And of course, now you can see that there are those columns with the Z, what, why, are also included here, right? So all of them have been included, and I can also include the name, that I showed you in the first column. I can include that here, so I can have that separation. So that's what we're going to learn today. How I put all of them together, do it in a dynamic way, so you can summarize all that information and get it clean and ready for your report. Okay, excellent. So while I'm here, I see Ellie. Bienvenida. Welcome, Ellie. Thank you for being here. Oh, Christian. Christian is here. Christian is in the house. Thank you so much, Christian. Christian is from Romania. If you don't know, Christian runs Power BI users group and meetup. I'm sorry, Christian, I don't remember exactly the name of the group, but I'm very close. So it's a meetup group. So thank you so much for being here. And actually, let me see if I can show you guys. His meetup group is very good. He has so talented guests. So I have learned so much in his site, and it's free. So you can register there. And every session, and it's free. And if you cannot make it to his sessions or his live sessions, you can always go and check the recording in YouTube. So let me just, I'm bringing that that page. Let me see. It is, this is his, oh, I attended to a session yesterday. So this is his group, Romania Power BI and Modern Excel user group. This is here, Christian is here. And these are all the previous sessions, which are very cool. So Melissa was there last time, and he has so many good guests. So awesome. And that's it. I think I clicked at the wrong. I want to see all the past ones. So anyhow, excellent. Thank you, Christian. Yes, Romania Power BI and Modern Excel user group. Excellent. No, it's a pleasure to share, because it's a lot of learning there. So excellent. Thank you. Hi, Martin. Good morning. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Okay. So saying that, let me remove the additional information that I put in my folder file. In my PDF file. So I'm going to delete 5, 6, 7. I'm going to leave only 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to leave in that folder additional information. I'm going to leave all these 3 files. So we will add them to later on when we finish our query to transform that information. So now that I move those files out of that folder, I'm going to right click to my pivot table and I'm going to refresh. And you will see that we go back to only the 4 files that we have in the folder. So that's fast, that easy, once you develop the query to do that, right? So here, I'm going to go to data. And when you, I'm going to go to queries and connections. So you will see that I already have my query that is solving this issue. However, when you start, you will start in a blank workbook. So you will start right here. You will go to data and then get data from file, and we're going to get it from a folder. We're going to get the folder, that PDF folder that is in my desktop. So I'm going to go to my desktop, demo 2022 November 5th. So you will have a different path, but wherever you save the files, in the folder, wherever you save the files, that's what the folder that you need to look for. So here I have my PDF folder. I'm going to double click there. This is the folder I want to grab, so I'm going to say open. The navigator will open and it will show me the content of that folder. So I'm going to press Ctrl+Shift+ to zoom in, and sure enough, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the files that I just showed you. I cannot combine, because if I combine, the information is going to be all over the place. And what happens, so just very quickly, I'm going to show you what happens if we try to combine. I'm going to say combine and transform, because I cannot combine and load, because it really is very messy. But what happens if I just click and select combine? Power Query will select one of those files, and it will use that file as a sample to make the transformation. Let's say I'm going to select the table. If I select the table and I say OK, first Power Query selects one of those files, but here I can change that file for any other one that I want to use as a sample. But it doesn't matter, because when I go select that, it will use only the columns that are contained in that specific file and work with that. So if I say select the table and I say OK, then the information that Power Query will create for me will be a bunch of information that I have to use, or I'm going to use as helpers for me to combine. So now here, this PDF query that created, first thing, I always need to change type, because this will create an error later on, because the information is hard-coded here. The name of the columns are hard-coded here, and I'm going to transform my file. So anything that I transform will be happening in here in transform sample file. Of course, anything that happens here later on, it won't match with all the columns that I have in here. So for that reason, I always delete this step. Now, this is the combination of all the files. If I click here where it says source name, you can see that I have listed 1 to 4, all the files that come on that folder. Ctrl+Shift+ to zoom in. But now if I go to the transform sample file, that is where the transformation happened. But the problem here is that I have only 3 columns, and that is exactly what is going to happen in all the files that I'm going to be combining. It will have only 3 columns, and that doesn't work with the scenario that I have right now. The scenario that I have right now is every single file has different amount of columns, different name of columns, and it has different pages too, as we saw, right? So it doesn't work. For that reason, this method is not applicable in this specific scenario. I'm going to close the Power Query editor, and I'm going to go back to my blank workbook. So I'm going to discard. I don't need this. But I wanted to show you why I need to do that, because otherwise it seems very easy to use the combine feature, but it's not always applicable with the scenarios that we have. Okay, so I can see here some comments. Yes, I agree. I agree. Never ever click combine. I agree, Christian. Yeah, it's because it creates a lot of things that might not be applicable to your scenario. And of course, when you are starting and you have very consistent files, all of them have the same number of columns, same name of columns, and you are learning this, it helps to start combining in that way. But honestly, stay away from it as much as possible. I could follow Christian advice and never ever click combine. So thank you. Exactly. What we need to control how we are going to combine, and we have specific needs. So the combine feature is not designed for our specific needs. It's designed for a very general approach, which is helpful sometimes, and especially when we are starting, we are learning Power Query, is very helpful. But once we are getting more knowledge, more experience with Power Query, we realize that it's a good feature, but honestly, it's better to develop our own process and combine our files. So yes, I agree. I completely agree, Christian. Marvin, good morning. Thank you for joining. cheers to Kansas. Thank you so much for being here. Awesome. And okay, and you came at a perfect time because we're going to start developing the query today. Excellent. So I'm going to go to that blank workbook where you're going to start. You're going to go to data, get data from file, from folder. Then here, you're going to select the folder where your information is coming from. You're going to say open. And again, we're going to have the content of that folder. This time, what you have to select is transform data. We will transform that information. You will see the content of that folder here. So this is the starting point. For me, I already developed the query, and it has been very helpful to have that as support in case I have a mistake. So I can always go back and check my solution. So just to make sure that I'm not skipping some of the steps that I need to develop in this query. So this is where you're going to start. I'm going to close this and I'm going to go to my solve file to get you or to be in the same screen. So just let me close this. So, but this is where you're going to start, okay? So I'm going to go and get my solve file. And because I already have the solution, I have my queries here on the right. If you cannot see them, you can go to data, select queries and connections, and then you will have this available on the right. I have my query demo. I'm going to double click there. And it's going to get me to the Power Query Editor. Control-Shift+ to zoom in. And here, of course, is bringing me to the query. Here I have all the steps that we're going to develop. We're going to transform our column content. We're going to expand the information that is coming from our data column. You will see what I mean when we develop this. We're going to promote the headers inside of the tables that are coming from every single file here in these files that we have in the folder. We're going to add the file name inside of these tables, right? And once we do that, we are going to expand this information. We're going to have the columns. We're going to be working, by the way, we're going to be working with one file at the beginning, or actually with all the files that are included in that column. So all the files are included in that column that is called data at this point. And we're going to combine all of that. We're going to extract all the columns dynamically so you can see that nothing is hard-coded here. None of the names of the columns are hard-coded. All of them are dynamic. So by doing this, I'm very sure that no matter the name or the number of columns in the files, all of them are going to come. Of course, these files have some empty columns, and I'm very certain that those empty columns are those called column 1, column 2, column 3, etc. For that reason, I can delete all of the columns that contain the word column. So I prepare a list of the columns that my files have that meet that criteria, that contains the column name. Once I get that, so I can dynamically delete those columns by choosing that list with the names that I want to remove. Once I have that, then I can unpivot. What I mean by unpivot, I can put together all the information that is similar. I can put all of that in one column. And what is similar? Similar is all those columns with information of the E, I, A, B, C, D, all those columns have similar information. In other examples, could be the months, could be the years, could be something that is similar, and it needs to be contained in only one column. For that reason, I'm able to unpivot. I can keep the name and the file name columns available, like separated, but the other information, I can grab that information and put it in only one column. And you can see that here we have that column with the letters, with the name of the columns, and the amounts are in the next column. So that is what we need for our reports, for our charts. So that information is going to be useful to work with, right? So, and then finally, we will change the data type, and then we will be able to get into Excel and get our pivot table, okay? Excellent. So that is the goal today. And I am here on the left, on my left, where it says queries. I'm going to right click on the white side, and I'm going to say new group. I'm going to say solved, and that is just to move my query and my directory, my value that I have there. I'm going to move it to a folder, and I'm going to say okay. So I'm going to take my directory. I'm going to select my query demo. To select both, I press and hold the control key, and then I'm going to drag them to that folder solved. Excellent. So now you can see I have here just a value that it says really the path where my folder PDF is. And what am I doing? Why do I do this? I do that to make this in a way that if I change location of the file, I can easily change the information here. I have shown you in previous tutorials or in previous sessions how to do this with a parameter. But I wanted to show you today that it also works when I have just a value in a query, right? So here is, I'm pointing out to my directory, which is this, my directory, right? If I change this PDF to that folder that it says additional info, if I remember correctly, let me just see here. What's the name? Additional info, yes. And I press enter. Oh, additional info. Let's see. Okay, enter. Now my query will be bringing information. Let me just refresh just to make sure. And now you can see that the files that I'm bringing here is 5, 6, 7, not 1, 2, 3, 4. Why? Because I changed the location in here. In this value, I changed to additional info. And now, of course, my query is following that path. Now it's bringing information from the additional info folder. For that reason, it's very handy to have a parameter or a value that is gonna help us to dynamically or easily change the location of our files, right? And that is very important, especially when you are sharing files or you are gonna move your information, you're gonna archive, you're gonna save in a different location. So this is very helpful. You don't need to go to the code and change it. It will automatically change. So once you change the information here in my directory, then it changes here. Now I have file 1, 2, 3, and let's see, I need to see 4 as well. So I'm gonna load more just to make sure. And yes, sure enough, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 files. Perfect. That is what I want. So let's start creating that from scratch. What I have shown you before is I got to this actually here on home, manage parameters, and I can say new parameter. That is the part where I could say my path, let's see. And here I could say I want this information as a text, and I want any value, and the current value, I should have copied that. So let me just go here and copy that from here. Let's copy from this, Control C, and then I go here and Control V. And that is going to give me exactly the same information. And it's a parameter. And it works in the same way. If I have my query and I point out my information to that parameter, it will do exactly the same. Some people don't feel comfortable to create parameters. It seems to be the stage where they are in their journey with Power Query. It seems still a little bit scary. So for that reason, sometimes it's just so simple to get here. Right click, new query, other sources, blank query, and just paste that route or that path and press enter. It does exactly the same. It has exactly the same information in this specific case, okay? And then let's see, have Rashid, good morning, hello. Thank you for being here. Oh yeah, this is very good, Christian. The one can use the formula in Excel to get the location. I see this one is very useful. So you can be in the file and then you can grab that information automatically, really, because it's inside of the file. So that's very good. I won't try it live because I have been struggling sometimes with the live coding. But yes, please take a look to what Christian is saying and take note because it really is very helpful. So thank you, Christian, but I will try it for my next tutorial. I don't want to get in trouble because I didn't do something properly. Thank you. Yeah, this is very cool. Yes, I really like it. I don't remember who I saw it first time, but it's very cool. Thank you so much, Christian. I really appreciate that you're sharing. Excellent. Okay, so this is a way to get this in a place where you are going to control, or you are going to have very well identify where your file is. So I'm going to call this query my location, let's say. My location, and I'm gonna say live, so we know that we created that today. So we are gonna point our query out to this, to any of those. It could be the parameter, or it can be this query only with the text. And because it's just a text, you will see that our query has ABC, an icon that says ABC, because it's just a text, right? That is given the value of that query is just a text, a line that is a text. Excellent. So now let me call our folder. Here again in the white side, with white part of these queries, I'm going to say new query, file, folder. This is exactly the same that you will do when you are in Excel, right? So I said data, get data from file, from folder. I go to desktop, demo 2022 November 5th, and PDF is the folder where my files are. And I'm going to say open. Once I'm here, same thing, Power Query will show me the content of that folder. This is correct. I'm going to transform data. Once I'm here, I can see the content of that file. And here is where my directory or my path is located. So I'm going to delete that. And instead of that, I'm going to say my location live. My location live. And I'm going to say enter. Nothing changes here, but now I have this information or this query connected to this text, right? I could have said also my path, and same thing. It would be connected to the information that is provided here. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my query. And now I can start with the transformations. The file or the content of this file is here on the content column, and this file is coming as binary, right? So 10011000, right? So this information is coming as binary. Here is the name of the files, and I have the extension and much more information here on the right, the folder path, etc. What I want to do, I just want to work with these two columns. So let's start with this content column. This is the one that I want to transform. So, good practices, just make sure that you make some consistency on these files, just to make sure that there is no information that is saved on this folder that is not a PDF file. So I have shown this several times before, so I'm going to go a little bit fast on this, just to make sure that this is clear, and it's just a good habit to have, right? So I'm just gonna go right click here, transform uppercase, so everything will be uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter, it's gonna be consistent. I'm gonna right click here where it says PDF, and I'm gonna say text filters, and it's gonna say equals. Here, Power Query will bring the information only for the PDF files, right? So it's selecting only PDFs. And very quickly, I'm going to rename my steps because it really helps to have that guidance later on. So what I'm doing here, right? So I'm going to filter PDF. And now that I have that, I'm going to go to the column name. I'm going to click at the row, and I'm going to say text filters does not begin with. And that just happened to me this week at work, that I forgot to do the does not begin with. And someone had the file open and my information doubled. So the reason why it does not begin with the tilde, that wave, right? The one that is located beside the number 1 on your alphanumeric keyboard. For that means that if this is in front of the name of the file, that means that the file is open. And Power Query will bring both the file. Let's say if I have file 4 open, it will bring file 4, and it will also bring the one with the wave or with the tilde before and then 4. So it will bring both files. So it will duplicate your information. So make sure that you say the file do not begin, the name of the file does not begin with this tilde. Okay, excellent. Now that I prevent errors happening later on, now I can move on and I start transforming my information inside of my content column. So I'm going to create a new step. Oh, I'm going to just say filter, and I filter open. So I'm going to go to create a new step, Fx. If you don't have the formula bar visible, you need to go to view and make sure that here where it says formula bar, you have the check mark there. And just very quickly, I'm seeing, I have two people in LinkedIn, and Jodiji, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, and cheers. Cheers to Nigeria. I'm sorry for my pronunciation. Cheers to Lagos. Thank you so much for being here. Very appreciated. Okay. Once I have this information, I created my new step. I'm going to say equal. And what I want to do, I want to transform this column content. So I'm going to say Table.Transform_Columns here. I'm going to open parentheses. It's going to ask me for a table. The table is coming from the previous step that is called filter open. That's fine. That is this table that I'm seeing. I'm going to say comma. I need to provide the transformation that I want to perform in this column, and I need to provide this as list. So for Power Query, to provide a list is providing the curly brackets. Once I provide that, I need to provide the name of the column that I want to transform. So I'm going to say the column is the column content, comma. And what do I want to do inside of that column? So, well, I want Power Query to process the following. So I'm going to give the keyword. Each is a keyword for a function. So it needs to process the following, right? So it's going to process that for every single item that I'm going to have in this table, right? So I'm going to say each, and I want to bring the information from the PDF file. So I just type PDF, and then I get PDF.tables. That's the one that I want to use. I'm going to open parentheses, and I'm going to provide the underscore. That means that Power Query needs to look into every single line of this column content. So I'm going to go close that parentheses, close the curly brackets for the operation or the transformation, and I'm going to close the parentheses for the table transform columns, and I'm going to press enter. Now it changed from binary, it changed to a table. Here I can see that now I have the content of those PDF files. So I have pages and I have tables. In this case, I bring the tables. In most cases, you will bring the tables. There will be times where the pages will give you the information that you need than the table. But in my experience, most of the cases, the tables have the information that I need. For that reason, I want to make sure that I bring only the tables. I don't want both because it will double the information. It will bring the information in as a page and as a table. So I don't want that. So I want to make sure that I'm going to bring only the information that comes from the tables. I can filter that. So, and I'm going to use the same step here. And let me see if it allows me, just in case. If I remember correctly, it allows me. So after here, the part of the transformation, I'm going to say Shift Enter, and I'm going to move this a little bit to the right. So to move it to the right, I press Control and the square bracket, the closing square bracket, so indent a little bit. And from here, I'm going to say that I want table, select rows. So I want to select the only specific rows. And select rows here. I need to provide a table. Well, the table is the content in here that is coming from the PDF tables here, right? And I'm going to just move this one down below. And this is my table. And what is my condition? Well, my condition is each. I want to process the following, right? So I want to bring only those items from the column kind. From this column kind, I want to bring only the items that are equal table. So I'm going to say equal, and within quotation marks, table. Table. And because I'm referring to a column, I need to provide the square brackets. And I think close parentheses for that. And let's see if it works, if I provided this correctly. Excellent. Now you can see if I click in this white area from the table, now you can see that I have only the tables in every single file. I don't have the pages anymore. That is exactly what I want. So when I expand this, it will bring only those tables, right? So I don't have to make any other cleaning or other filter later on. I can do it from here. So now I have this ready. Let's click at these two rows that I have on the top of the column. Let's click there and expand only the data column. And why do I want that? Because here, when you look at this information, this column data is the one that has the tables inside. So for that reason, I'm going to just click there. And I don't want to use the original name as a prefix. Let me see if I don't want to be on the way. So I just want to see that you can see my screen correctly. What about here? Excellent. Yes. Okay. Now, data, I select that column is the only one that I want to expand, let's say. So I click there, and now I can see that that information is here. So every single table will bring every single line will bring a table. Remember that file 2 has two tables. One has a specific amount of columns, and the second one has more columns, right? So, and here I can see that file 2 has 2 lines, is because it has 2 different tables, one with 8 columns, and the second one with more than 1. Perfect. Now, let me rename this custom step. So I'm going to use F2, press F2, and this is the one that I said I was going to expand, filter tables, and now here I expanded data. So, and I see a question that I think is a very good question at this point in the process. So I say, suppose you only want table 1, not 2, then you will need to filter that information. And probably in this, you will need to select from this. So in this case, you probably need to expand at this point, expand a little bit more in here. So you can select only the first item. So you probably need to have a filter where you are going to say, in here, it says, and let me see other table just to make sure. Yeah, page 1. So you probably will need to add a filter where it says the kind is table and name equals, let's see if allows me to do this. Page 1, I think it's going to ask me for the hashtag. So let me just make sure. I'm not 100% sure about the hashtag, but let's see. Oh yeah, no, it didn't like that. Okay, so let me do that. And here is empty. And then let me change this for or. I just, or. No, and page 1, kind, and page 1. It should work though. Oh, let me see something. Let me just remove this one quickly. And yeah, okay. Let me open this. I'm giving the filter incorrectly. So add as new query. From tables. Okay, right here. And I have this info is because I'm not giving this information correctly. So because I copy that portion, I just say page 1. It has to say, oh, there. Okay, just give me 1 second. So it needs to say page 001, whatever, page 1. So let me just delete this. And very quickly. And I'm going to copy this. Excellent. Or we can say ID page table. No, page 1. That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to my other query where we're working. And what is that? Filter tables. And here I'm going to say end name equals the whole thing. And I'm going to say enter. It should work. Yeah, and now works. It just brings you one table, the first table, right? So in this case, it should be okay. Okay, excellent. Phew, it works. So, but in our case, we want all of them. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this, but that's how you could do it. Okay, so just look for something that is specific for that line or for that information that you're looking for, something that is characteristic of that row. So that will help you. Okay, and can you show how to read data from different tables on one? I need to look into this, Dragon. Let me think about it, and I'll let you know. So, yeah, because I want to continue. Otherwise, I'm gonna get into that. So let me think about it. But I'm gonna take note of that. Okay. PDF functions, some optional parameters. Okay, perfect. So PDF tables functions has also some optional parameters. One can play with them. Oh, thank you, Christian. I really appreciate all the tips that you are giving us. Okay, and step, what name, any parentheses. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. So if you create a new step in Power Query and just write the name of any function, so let me show you what Christian says. So even here, let me go and create here a new step, and I say PDF tables, for example, and I say enter. So here is what Christian is saying. So Christian is mentioning that if you say this without the parentheses, then you will have the documentation of the functions that you are using or you want to use, and then you realize, okay, this is the one that I need, and here I have the option to enter the parameters, and I have some examples as well. They are at the bottom. You cannot see them very well, so let me make this one a little bit smaller so I can do this. You can see that at the bottom, you will always notice, you will always find some examples. Okay, thank you, Christian, very appreciated. Okay, perfect. And once you look at that, you can delete this. Okay, you can go to this area, to white area, right click, new query, other sources, blank query, and then you can do exactly the same. You can say equal transform columns or something like that. Table remove columns and enter, and then same thing, gives you the documentation and the examples at the bottom. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Christian. Very appreciated. So I'm gonna delete this and get back to our example. I don't need this helper query anymore, so I'm gonna delete it. It was just to see the name of the sheet or the page that I wanted to bring. So perfect. And we are back into our query. And no, you are very welcome. Thank you so much for the questions. Perfect. Oh yeah, this is easier. Thank you so much, Christian. Table first aim will bring that information. So that's very, very true. Thank you, Christian. And that is very good because you can make it as many rows as you need, right? So that's very good, as many lines as you need. In the page here, you can filter two tables in the same page here by the header. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at this. I'm not too sure what I'm understanding here. So, but yeah, there are several options. So it really helps. Power, like everything, Power Query can do same thing in many different ways, but it's just knowing, right, those ways. That is, sometimes it's just with practice that you realize that, okay, I haven't applied this technique or this other technique, and it gives you the same and maybe more efficiently. So it's just matter to keep practicing and watching other solutions. I have been, so that's why I'm always everywhere watching everything that I can. And not because I'm gonna remember everything, but because I'm gonna see others' solutions. And also, I know that there is something in a place that someone presented a solution and I may don't need right away, but later on I will need, and I can always go back and see those tutorials, those videos, and go back to their YouTube channel and then watch that is there, because it's very, very helpful. So yeah, that's why you will find me everywhere. So that's how I met Christian. Christian is also everywhere. He loves to learn too. So thank you. Excellent. Now we are here and we have our tables, right? But then I noticed that my headers are not promoted. My headers are on the first line, and I want the headers promoted because I want to make sure that the titles of the columns are there, because I'm going to work with them, right? So I need them to connect to the tables and make sure that all the tables are going to come together. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create another step, and I'm going to press at this FX, or I could have selected the previous step, right click and insert a step after. But in this case, I just click at the FX. I just find it very easy. I'm going to, after the equal, I'm going to say Table.TransformColumn is one of my favorite functions these days, and I think it will be for a while. So I really enjoy transforming just the column, working in that column, transforming. So I don't need to create an additional column. I can just work on the existing column, and it keeps everything for me more understandable. So I'm gonna press comma because it's asking me for a table. The table is coming from the previous step. That is the table that I'm seeing right here. I'm going to press comma. And again, I need to provide the transformation within the curly brackets. So I'm going to provide that because it's asking me for a list. And I need to provide the name of the column that I want to transform. So I'm going to say it's going to be data, comma. What do I want to do there? Well, each. So I need to process the following. So I need that a Power Query works on the following, and I want to only table promote headers. And I'm going to open parentheses. I'm going to provide the underscore, so that transformation is applied to every single line on this column. And I'm going to close the parentheses for table promote headers. I'm going to close the curly brackets for the transformation that I'm asking to be processed. And I'm going to close the parentheses for the table transform columns. I'm going to press enter. And now you will notice that our tables have the first line promoted as header. Okay, excellent. And excellent. Okay. Ariel is saying that the keyboard in Spanish is changing the words. Yeah, I totally get it. So yeah, no worries. So it took me a little bit of time to see that, but thank you so much, Ariel. And I'm gonna take a look to that later on. Okay. And yes, Christian, never stop learning, ever. Thank you so much. Awesome. Okay, now we have that information that we can start combining. Well, but I want to combine this dynamically. So what I want to do, I want to get the name of this file inside of the tables that I have here. So I can work only with information in one column. I don't want to keep two columns. I don't want to expand this column here, bring those names as hard-coded. There are ways to bring them dynamically, but I prefer to use the Table.Combine function to combine all those tables. So what I'm going to do, I like to introduce or to get the name of the file inside of every single table that I have in my column data. To do that, I'm going to create a new step. And in that step, I'm going to add an additional column, and I'm going to show you why it's easier to work in this way with an additional column. So I'm going to, at least for me, I know there are several ways to do things, but in this case, I just find it easier. I prefer to do everything in one column, but in this specific case, when I'm going to add the name of the file to the existing tables, it works better for me to create an additional column. So a lot of times we have preferences, but sometimes we need to see what is better for the process or for our own understanding. And for me, it has worked better this to add the column. So table add column to the existing table, that is this, coming from the custom one step. That reminds me, I didn't rename my step. We'll rename that later on. So that is my table. That is a table where I want to add the new column. And the new column will be called final. That will be the final column that we are going to expand and extract all the information from all the tables. I'm going to press comma. And what do I want to do there? Well, I'm going to say each. I want to add a column inside of this table. So I'm going to say table.column again. And open parentheses. What is the table? Where is the table coming from? Well, the table will come from my column data. That's the one that has all the tables. So my table will be inside of square brackets because it's a column. It will come data, so comma. What is the name of the new column inside of those tables? Well, that will be file name. And I'm going to give this as capitals or uppercase because that specific table has a column that is called name, that has the name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So I want to be consistent with the columns that we are going to keep separated from all the other columns that are different in every single file. Okay, so I'm going to say comma. And what do I want to do here? So here I'm going to try to provide each keyword. But it's going to be, and I'm going to show you, I just want to show you that it's going to give us an error because we are talking about different environments. We're talking about different, let's say, dimensions. So this each works on each specific item on this table. But when I'm talking to transform a table that is nested, this each is out of that environment. This each needs to modify or introduce something in a table that is not, let's say, visible here, let's say, right? So if I say each, and I said I want here to bring name, to bring just that file name, and I say, I go to the end, close parentheses, and I press enter. I go to the end with that final column is, and then I can see that I was able to add a column inside of these tables, but it gives me an error. And that is the reason why, because I am providing a keyword that doesn't apply to the environment where these tables are. So what I need to do, I need to find a way, a key that is going to allow me to go inside of these tables and it's going to kind of open the door for me and it's going to allow me to then deposit that new column, insert that new column at that table. So what do I do there? So each is a short name or a key name for a function. So that means that I can provide something that is going to play that role as function. And what is a function for Power Query? So it's the parentheses, the equal, and the greater than. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, Control-Shift-Plus, so you can see. So this is a function at the end of the day. Inside of the parentheses, I provide a parameter. The parameter can be ABC or can be a word. It doesn't matter. It's a parameter. And I want that parameter to allow me to go inside of the nested table and bring the column, the information that is in the column name. So the parameter is here, and I'm going to say enter. I'm going to go back to that table. Oh, it gave me error. Let me see if it's because the parameter, sorry. I always get that backwards. Okay, perfect. So I don't enter the X because I'm just introducing a column. So there will be cases when you need the parameter here. In this case, is not necessary. And that is, if I remember correctly, is when I modify the table inside. In this case, I'm just introducing a new column. When I make operations like multiplications and stuff like that, or bring information from one column to another, etc., I think it's when I need the X. I always need to try and see, because I always get that confused. So this case, I needed the parameter. I needed the function to allow me to go inside of that table and open the door for me, let's say, and allow me to introduce that column, right? So now I have that information inside of every single table. So I want to show you so here is one. So here we have file name 2, the next one at the end, file name, and so on. So all of them will have that information depending on the name of the file. But I don't want to bring the name of the file. I just want to bring the name without the extension. Well, that's going to be very easy, because once I'm here, I'm going to say each. After the each, I'm going to say, let me move this. And actually, let me bring the each here. And I'm going to move this in here. So what I want to do here is, instead of name, I'm going to say text before delimiter. I want anything that comes before the dot, and it's going to ask me for the text. The text is going to be provided by my column name, comma, and the delimiter is going to be the dot, is the one that is separating the name of the file and the extension. So that's going to be the delimiter, close parenthesis for the text before delimited, close parenthesis for the add column inside of that table, and close parenthesis to add column to this table. So, and I'm going to say, click at the check mark if you have issues trying to get there. And now I have the file name without extension, right? So every single file will have that. Now, just the name of the file, okay? So let's say, what else do we have here? We should add Table.Column. Yes, it's a little bit, it gets me a little bit confused sometimes, Rashid. So that's why I just find it easier and for me faster to understand when I put that additional column, but definitely you can do that in there. I have seen that done. I have done it before because someone showed me how to do it, and it just gets me confused sometimes. So because I'm showing you, I want to make sure that I understand what I'm showing you. For that reason, I added the column. But yeah, you can do, as I said, in Power Query, there are just so many things that you can do the same. But yeah, there is much more that you can do for sure, and optimize this for sure much more. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yes, Ariel, I love that too. He loves to introducing the name of the file in the nested columns. I really like it too. I enjoy it. It's having everything in one table. I really like that. Thank you, Christian. Inner table context and outer table context are a bit tricky. Yes, right? I totally get that. It's like I always get confused with the X or, well, the parameter. If you put the parameter there or not, I always get confused with that. Yeah, I need to practice more of that, Christian. When it gets clear, everything will be easier. Yeah, it's just need to practice much more. But I know it's there. I use it and I just try. Oh, I put the parameter. Oh no, this time I don't put the parameter. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Christian. Jose, thank you so much for being here. Gracias por estar aquí, Jose. Buenos días. Thank you so much. Excellent. Some of the members from the audience today are also members or part of the audience of my community and the Spanish channel. So I really appreciate you guys are here supporting and ready to learn new techniques or new tricks and tips and tricks. So I try to prepare different content for every single presentation that I have, and what I present in my channel in Spanish is different to what I present in the channel in English, and so and vice versa. However, this example I presented in the channel in Spanish a few months ago, 3 months ago probably, but now I'm adding different techniques that I didn't apply back then. So somehow I'm presenting a little bit of new stuff this time. But yeah, the information might look familiar to you guys, but it's different techniques that we are seeing today. Okay, excellent. And some of them are the same. So excellent. Okay, now that I have the file name inside of the tables, I feel comfortable to expand this column, and I don't worry about the other ones, keeping any of the other ones, because I have all the information that I need in here. So let me just quickly rename my steps. And here was, what did I do here? Promote headers. Oh yeah. And that's why you rename as you go, because then later on you forget headers. And my second step, my second custom is add file name. Yeah, perfect. It really helps. And you have seen here before, when I get confused, when I get errors, it's very handy to go back to the steps and check the information, what is going on. And when I don't rename the steps, I struggle finding the steps where I need information from. So Here, this is the only column that I want to keep. This is the information that I want to get. So what happens with the Table.Combine files, with the Table.Combine, it will combine all these tables, but it will ignore the content of any other column. So we lose all the other columns when we use the Table.Combine function. That's why I just want to grab and to bring all the information in these tables, right? So I'm going to create a new step, and I'm going to say equal. I'm going to say Table.Combine, open parentheses. The tables, I need to provide the tables as list. And what a better way to provide a list than referring to a table and just provide the square brackets. It will, and the name of a column, and that will bring that column as list. So that is what I'm going to do. So I open the square brackets, and I'm going to say final. That is the column that I want to bring. If I provide double square brackets, it will bring the column in a table. I want a list, and for that reason, I just provide one set of square brackets, and it will bring that column as list. So I'm going to close parentheses, and I'm going to say enter. And now here we have, let me hide the query so we have a little bit more room to see. Here we have all the existing columns in all the files that are inside of my folder PDF. Nothing is hard-coded. For that reason, it will expand all the columns that are contained inside of those files. That is the trick here. I don't need a function to process a specific step or a specific process to every single file. No, by doing this process, how we are seeing it today, I can just grab the files that I have and put it inside of my folder PDF. Something very important, you need to make sure that those files will have the tables that will start with the titles of the columns. If you have files inside of a folder that may not start with that, then this is going to give you issues. Okay, something very important to keep in mind is that there must be certain consistency on the files. And in this case, even though they are messy and they are very inconsistent, the consistency is that the tables of all of those files start with the titles of the columns. Okay, something very important and is key in this process. Okay, excellent. Let me see. Yes, so very good as to have here is that the best thing in Power Query is that one can click any button or try any function, and this is not altering the source. And that, I think that's the part that I love about Power Query the most, other besides of the time that saves and the amazing things that it does, is that it doesn't damage the source, especially with Excel. Especially with Excel, you can be very certain that whatever you do in your queries, it won't damage your source. You can break the queries, you can try, delete, and start all over, and your source remains intact. So that's one of the best parts that I find in Power Query. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, and that's why you can test, you can try, and if it doesn't work, you just start all over. And that's why you duplicate queries, just to make sure that you don't lose your whole process. When you are learning, when you're testing, duplicate your query, make your test. If it works, add that to your original query or the query that you want to get for your process, and then you can keep trying. And the worst thing that can happen is that you work in your only query that you have, and something went very wrong, and you just need to start all over again. But the source is intact. So I love that. Yes, thank you, Christian. Oh, yeah. Rashid, you can also add emoji a name of the step. Yes, I think Win Hopkins does that. I think here in, let's say, F2, I'm going to select this step, press the Windows dot, and then let's put this happy face. And just, it doesn't come with color, and this ghost. And then you can put that here and you press enter, and that is the name of your step. So that's very cool. Thank you so much, Rashid. I totally forgot about that. Thank you so much. Awesome. Okay, this is gonna be, we are gonna create, now we're gonna create a dynamic list of the columns that we need to delete. Why? Because here I have, now that I expanded all the columns, I noticed that, for example, column 1 is completely empty. And I know for a fact that in my files, every single column that starts with column, so it could be column 1, column 2, 3, etc. Every single one of them will be empty. The other ones, for example, column L here, is empty in this specific line or these specific lines because probably the file number 1 doesn't have the column L. But if I look, if I click at this row, I can see that I have some amounts later on, and that's it. Okay, probably the file number 1 didn't have any information, but if I start scrolling down, oh, I can see information here. What is going on here? So I can see, oh, this is another file. In this case, this will be file name. File name is 2. Okay, the file number 2 has information on the column L, and so on. So, but I know for a fact that those columns starting with column are completely empty. So I can do the thing with the Table.Combine. When you use Table.Combine here, what is that one here? When you use that, it doesn't allow you to select the specific columns. It brings all the columns. And that's the beauty of the function, but at the same time, it's very limiting because I'm not able to select the columns that I want to bring or I don't want to bring, right? So for that reason, we're going to remove certain columns. And here, let's say let me create another step here. And if I say, and of course, this is referring to the happy face and the ghost. Let me change this one. And this is going to be Table.Combine. And if I go to custom, and I said in here, I want to table, remove columns, comma, and which columns I want to remove. Okay, well, I could have just selected the columns and delete them, and Power Query could create this code for me anyways. But I said columns as any, so column 1, for example, let's say column 1, and I press enter. So now column 1 will be gone, but I will still have column 2, right? So I will need to add column 2 as hard-coded. So here I still have column 2, and I don't have column 1 anymore. But the problem with this is that this column 1 stays hard-coded, and I don't want that because, great, I have everything dynamic, and then I start hard-coding names, right? So here, as up to here, everything is dynamic. And then I start hard-coding columns. And I don't know how many more columns will be empty later on. So in this case, I only have 4 files, but remember, we have 7 files in total. When I bring the next 3 files, what if they have column 3 or column 4? So those ones won't be included in here when I delete those columns. So we need to find a way to do this dynamic. And the way to do this is I'm going to go back to Table.Combine. I'm going to add a step, or I can do it later on, but I'm going to go in order. For Power Query, the order doesn't matter. I can create variables in any order, and Power Query will figure out what Power Query needs to get the result that I'm asking for. So, but just to understand the process, I'm going to add the step here where it says Table.Combine. I'm going to insert a step there. And here I'm going to say I want to bring the column names for this table, right? Where I have all the columns. So I'm going to say table, column names. And open parentheses, the table is the table that is coming from my previous step. That is all the tables combined, all the tables expanded. And this is the list of all the names. And I have column 1 and column 2. Those are the ones that I don't want. So just to make sure that I don't have duplicates that I shouldn't have, but just in case, I'm going to say table distinct. So I'm going to prevent that I have any duplications. So table distinct, I'm going to grab this list, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to filter, and I'm going to bring only those columns that are unique. So I'm going to press enter, And it says, oh, sorry, it's list distinct. Sorry, I'm working with list. It's just the habit to work with tables. List distinct. And enter. And now I'm sure that I'm bringing only those items that are unique. And now what I want to do, I want to filter. I want to keep only those names that contains the word column. So here after the equal, I'm going to say list select and open parentheses. I need to provide a list, which is this list is the result of this list distinct. I go to the end, comma. And what is the criteria that this list needs to meet? So I'm going to say each first needs to process the following, and I'm going to say that text contains, and I need to provide the text. The text will come. I'm going to provide the underscore because the text will come from every single line on this list. That's what the underscore means. It's going to be one of every single items. And what we need to contain, it's going to contain column. Okay. Anything that contains column, that's what it's going to come to this list, close parentheses. Then we have dynamically identified all of those names that contains column. Doesn't matter how many of them are. It will be contained on this list, okay? And I see, oh, Christian. Okay, awesome. Yeah, the good thing is it stays recorded, so you can always come back and watch. Thank you so much for joining. I very appreciate you were here. Thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you everyone who is here. Thank you so very much for joining me and continue with this. Excellent. Okay, Christian, have a great day, great week, and I'll see you later in another tutorial, I'm very sure, in another sessions. So, excellent. Okay, let's continue. Okay, we have the columns. Now we have that listed. Doesn't matter how many empty columns we will have later on, they will be captured in here. And text contains will also allow me, if I remember correctly, let's see, it will allow me to have one more argument. This is optional and is a comparator. So I can say ignore if it's uppercase or lowercase. So I'm going to say ignore. And this comparator ordinal ignore case. Because let's say if I give column with all lowercase, it should work, right? So Power Query, if you don't know, Power Query is case sensitive. So if you put a name, if you spell a name wrong, if you spell with lowercase and it should be uppercase, then Power Query will bring an error. Now I put column all lowercase, but because I provided this comparator that ignore case, it's not giving me an error and it's still returning me those names with the word column. If I remove this part, let me just show you so you can see what I mean. So I'm going to Control X to remove that part and I press Enter. So the list is blank because it doesn't find anything that contains column all lowercase. But if I add that argument or that other part of the formula that is optional, if I provide that and I say a check mark or press Enter, then ignores if it's lowercase, uppercase, it doesn't matter. It just focuses on the word column. And that's what it's doing. Perfect. Excellent. So now that I have that, that is dynamic. So I'm going to call this columns calls to delete. Enter. My next step, of course, now recognize a new step, and now the last step will refer to the previous step, but I don't want that. It's referring to my list of the columns that I want to delete. I don't want that. I'm going to delete it. I want that this step refers to the Table.Combine. That is where we have our table with all our columns. So I'm going to say Table.Combine. And here is where I hard-coded the column that I wanted to delete. I'm going to replace that. I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to replace that for the columns to delete. So I'm going to say calls to delete here. That step that is just before this step that we are at. I'm going to press Enter. And now you can see, let me minimize this, that we don't have that column 1 or column 2. Let's go slowly. And now you can see on the titles, there is no such column that says column, right? So because we did that dynamically with this list. Excellent. So now I have my final columns. This step will be final columns. What do I need to do now? I can group, or I can transform, I can bring all the information that is similar, I can bring it in only one column. So name and file name are the ones that needs to stay separated. It needs to stay in their own column. They are different information that needs to be presented in their own columns. But everything else is similar information. Let's say this could be the sales, this could be, I don't know, could be items, it could be, units, it could be anything. But everything is the same type of information. For that reason, I can put all this information into one column, right? So that's gonna be, that's gonna allow me to prepare my reports properly or my charts properly, right? So I'm gonna select name, press and hold Control, select file name. I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna say unpivot other columns. Excellent. Now I have the information contained here that Power Query called attribute and value. Let's say for me, attribute is not gonna be attribute. I'm gonna say that could be item, right? So I can double click at the column and change the name. This is gonna create a new step. Or since I have the code here, I can see that here is where Power Query named this column as attribute. So I'm gonna say this is gonna be item. And just to say something, it doesn't really matter. It's just what I'm gonna, how I want to identify that column, right? And this value will be amount, let's say. You will have your own needs and you will need to call it in a different way, but it's something that it really will represent the information that is contained in that column. It could be the years, it could be the months. So it depends what you need. And I'm gonna press enter. And now you can see that the titles of the columns change because I just changed them here. So I have another issue here. So let me just first rename my step where it says unpivoted or columns. I'm gonna just leave unpivoted. So I like small names as much as possible. So now that I have this, I can see that this is hard-coded again. What if at one point I have other columns that I want to incorporate that have the word name, right? So it could be file name, and name, employee name, or something that, let's say, I need to find something that is going to identify this column. And in my case, could be the word name. I want that dynamic. I don't want to have this on pivot. Now that I accomplish all of this process, mostly dynamic, all of these steps are dynamic, and it doesn't matter how many columns or the name of the columns. It doesn't matter that. It has been dynamic so far. At this point, I'm going to make that step where I need to provide hard-coded information. No, I have a chance to make this dynamic as well. So, and I'm just going to use this step, columns to delete. I'm going to copy the whole code here, Control C. I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to do it, let's say, one before. As I said, we can create it at the end. It doesn't matter. But let's say just to understand the process, the steps that need to be taken. So I'm going to just put it here. When it says final columns, I'm going to right click this time. I'm going to say insert a step after, and I'm going to insert that. And once I'm here, this step refers to the previous step that it says final columns. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to delete everything actually. And I'm going to paste the code that I copied from columns to delete. And in this case, my text needs to contain name. And I can provide it as lowercase because I have this part of the function that is going to ignore the case. It's going to ignore if it's uppercase, lowercase, proper, it doesn't matter. It will find that name. And I'm going to press enter. And here I have the list with the columns that I want to keep. in this part of the formula. They are here. Of course, my last step is referring to the previous step that is custom, that I'm going to rename, by the way, as columns not unpivot. Unpivot. Oh, so the column, I cannot get it right. So the columns that I'm not going to unpivot, that's going to be our list. And here, I don't want that this step refers to this list. I want that this step refers to the final columns. Final columns step, which is going to bring us the table. And let's see what happens. I'm going to press enter, and sure enough, it brings us that information. It pivots that information, unpivots those columns. And now I'm going to delete these hard-coded column names. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to go and refer to that step where I have the list. I'm going to say columns not unpivot, columns not unpivot, and I'm going to press enter. And it works. Nothing seems to change here, and it's good because that is exactly what I want. I want to get this, but I want to get it in a dynamic way. And now the columns that have been created with this name, and now I'm ready to change the data type, because this information is being shown as text, and I know that because I have the ABC here. ABC represents a text. ABC 1, 2, 3 is not sure if this is a text or a number. It hasn't assigned a specific data type, and ABC here is text. If I click at any of these squares, you can see all the different data types that we have in here, and I have number, decimal number, currency, whole number, percentage, and here is where I see ABC, the text, right? So I'm going to select one of the columns because I just want to make sure that everything will be detected, let's say, and let's see how much good job, how much work, how good the work that Power Query does identifying these data types. So I'm going to select one column. I'm going to say Control A to select the whole table. I'm going to go to transform, and I'm going to say detect data type. And now you can see that Power Query did a very good job. It recognized the amount as 1, 2, 3, which is whole number, item as text, ABC, file name, whole number, because we have only 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So it's correct, and name as a text. So I can see that it's identifying this information correctly. And now I'm ready to pass this to Excel. Enter, just renaming my last step. I like to have my steps without spaces, because when I go to view, advanced editor, and I can see the code that Power Query has been created for me in back scene, these are the names of our steps. Let me make it a little bit bigger, Control-C+. These are the names of our steps. This is the code that Power Query creates for us, or some of the steps is the code we created, right? So it's easy to read when the steps are named only with one word. I separate each word with a capital. So this is a file name, because I really like to see how clean my code is. And also because, let's say, this step, this name of this step will be referred later on. Here, final column, I can see is referred in here. The next step is referring to the, or 2 steps after is referring to this specific step. So it's very clean. Let me show you what happens when you don't do that. So let's go to that final columns. I don't want to do this. Final columns. Excellent. I'm going to leave one space there. Let's go back to view, advanced editor. And with that specific step, let me make this a little bit bigger here and here. Now Power Query added the hashtag and the quotation marks because I have that space between those 2 words, and because this name is referred in here, it had to add that hashtag and the quotation marks as well. So you can see when we have a lot of steps, this gets very messy. I don't like how it looks. I prefer to have my steps as clean as possible, and that's why you see me a lot of times just removing sometimes the space, and everything seems to be just cleaner in the advanced editor. Okay, excellent. We are ready to pass this to Excel. I'm gonna go home, close and load to. And of course, I have the previous pivot table that I had when I solved the issue. This time, I didn't have to look into that. I'm so proud of myself. So it's the first time ever, I think. So anyways, I'm going to go only create connection, and I'm going to say, okay. And I'm going to just create connection because I don't want any other queries that I had created later on. For default, my Excel will bring all of those as new tabs. Power Query is, for default, creating all of that information as tables in new tabs. So I don't want that. So that's why when I create new queries, I work with new queries, I always bring them to Excel and I bring them as connection only, so I can control what is loaded to my spreadsheet and how, right? So now I have, this is our query where we were working today. I should have renamed it. I just realized that, but well, it's called PDF because that is the name of the folder where we extract the information from. So Power Query just named our query in the same way that the folder. So I'm going to right click to that query and I'm going to say load. And now I want to load it to a pivot table report. I don't want an existing worksheet. Oh, no, I don't want that because I want to show you. I wanted to show you that it's exactly the same result, but it doesn't matter. I want to show you that we have what we need. And the pivot tables need to expand to the right and to the bottom. So it's not going to be practical if I put it beside this one. So I'm going to create it in a new worksheet and I'm going to say, okay. Here, Power Query creates that tab with the name. And here, let me move on the side. So here, Power Query created that tab of that sheet with the name PDF, because that is the name of our query. That's why it created like that. And let me go back to the bottom. And okay, oh, I can see that Seth and Julie McKeever. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Very appreciated. I'm so sad you have to leave, but yeah, you can always watch just the end. We are very close to finish, so you can always come back and watch the end. Thank you so much for joining. Very appreciated. And yes, enlightening. Yes, I know. No, when I work with my iPad, I always get very different words that I want to say. So I totally get it. Excellent. So now that we have our pivot table here, I can bring the amount to the values. I can bring, let's say, the item to the row. Let's say these are the name of the columns, right? So I can bring it there, or I can bring them as columns, but it's going to be a huge table later on when I have that file 7 has 30 columns in total. So it will be a very long table. So for that reason, I know that because I prepared this example and I just want to show you. I prefer to show you this in a vertical way, so on a vertical layout. So that's why I'm bringing the item to the rows. And let's say I want to bring the file name on the column, so you can see that all the files are going to be included in this pivot table. And now that I'm here, I always like to go to Design, Report Layout, Show in Tabular Form, so I can see the name of this column. I just find it a little bit easier to read this layout or this design of this pivot table. And I always like to go to View and remove those grid lines, so all white seems to be cleaner to me. I'm going to right-click at any of the numbers inside of this pivot table. I'm going to click at Number Format, Number, use the 1000 separator, remove the decimals. I want 0 decimals, and I'm going to say OK. Now I'm here with information. It's easier to read to me when I have those 1000 separators. It's just much better in my eyes. Excellent. So our query seems to be working, but now let's test it with the additional information that we have from our folder additional info. When for those who couldn't see this at the beginning, I'm selecting those 3 files. I'm going to press Enter to open that information. And now you can see the content of file 6. Here I have an empty column that is called column 1. And I just saw a black screen, but I think you can still see. Okay. And now we can go here on number 5. We can see that this file 5 has set. That is not included in the previous files that we have, or with the query that we prepare. Number 7, this is the one that is very large. It has 30 columns in total, including the name column. Has empty columns in here and there, and it is big in comparison to the other ones. We're gonna close this, and here, oh, I need to copy this to our PDF folder. So the PDF folder has only the 4 files that you can see in the pivot table. So I'm gonna select these 3, Control C, and I'm gonna go here and Control V. I paste that, I go to my pivot table, I right click, and I refresh. And here we have the 7 files contained in this pivot table where I have all this information. It has all those columns from A to whatever it is. I can sort this an item. I can just sort A to Z, and then I have them in order. I have the 7 files here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I have the file name here. I have 1 to 7. I have the grand total, and I have the item. So you can see that our query is working properly. As I said, you can practice with the exercise that I used today. They are linked in the description of this video in YouTube. You should make live Excel dashboard, but probably later on. At this time, just pivot table. Yes, the dashboard takes me a little bit more time, but you can practice. You can try your dashboard and let us know how it went. Okay, excellent. So yeah, it would be nice to have a live Excel dashboard, but let's try that in another session. It's already 9:30. I cannot believe it's hour and a half. Oh yes, okay, excellent. Let's plan that for later on, Rashid. I like your idea to create a live Excel dashboard. It's very useful. I prefer visual. I'm very a very visual person. So I really prefer that. Of course, for my tutorials, it's easier to show you the pivot tables. Just it's faster just to create the pivot table, refresh, and then you can see the greatness of Power Query. You can see how much time this saves you. From now on, you can just add the files to your folder, and then just, as I did, right-click, refresh, and everything just updates because you prepare your query with your process and does that for you. So I hope you found this information useful. If you like it, please give me a like. Please, if you like it, please, if you like it, give me a like and share this information, and hopefully someone else can find it useful. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you here next Saturday. Okay? Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time, your questions, your comments. Very appreciated. It really makes this more useful, right? So all of we participate, all of we have something to share. And I really appreciate these sessions because we all learn so much from each other. So thank you so much. I have learned so much since I started these live sessions. I have learned so much from all of you. So thank you so much for sharing and for asking, because that makes me investigate. Let me search for the answers. And if I don't know, I search for the answers, or I point you out where I know there is already a tutorial, right? So it's better explained than I could ever explain. So yeah. So, but thank you so very much for being here. Thank you. And thank you, Marvin. I will use this in my work. Oh, that's awesome. I hope really you can make a very good use of this. Thank you so much, Marvin, for the support, for all your comments. I got behind on the chapters, but I need to catch up this weekend or during the week. So thank you so much, Marvin. I really appreciate all your feedback. Very, very appreciate it. I'm sorry for the answer. It was like a novel. So I think I was just painting with you, but thank you so much for all your comments and all your feedback. Thank you so very much. And Dragon, thank you for all. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you. And Gilok, thank you as well. Thank you so much. And Eli, me gusta, por nada, es mi gusto. Muchísimas gracias. Un placer. It's my pleasure, Eli. Thank you so much. And Morales, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone who joined today. And I'll see you next week, okay? And I see that Ellie sent me. I don't see it yet, but I see it in YouTube. It's sent. Oh, no, yes, I saw it already. I passed it already. Perfect. I think that's all the comments that I have. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Next week, we are changing the clocks. We are switching the clocks. We are changing the hour this weekend. So next week, it will be same thing, 8 a.m., but it will be Mountain Standard Time. I'm not sure how that's going to affect your schedule. So if you don't mind, just take a look to my page, to my YouTube channel, and the community side or the community area. Let me just open this. Let me bring that to you. So just keep your eye on this community tab, and that's where I add whatever is going to come, any next live. So just take a look just to make sure that the time doesn't change for you, or it changes. So just be aware of that, because yes, we changed the clocks tonight. Oh, thank God, I have an extra hour. So I'm so happy. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ariel. Thank you so much for all your comments, all your participation. Makes this very dynamic, and so very it's just not me talking, it's all of you participating, and I love that. Thank you so very much. Excellent. I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you in 7 days. Okay? Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.